Josh here with Project Car Media, and if you're like me and wondering if the Steeda ultralight low profile jacking rails will work with the Ford Performance tie down kit on your 2015 to 2021 Mustang, then stick around because I think I got a solution. Welcome back to my channel. Now, speaking of my channel, I just wanted to let everybody know that even though these last couple videos and this video, as well as the next couple, will be focusing on my GT350, that's not solely what my channel is about. Now, I've put out about 14 videos so far since I started my YouTube channel, and they've kind of been all over the place. So if it seems a little bit confusing, one week I'm doing this, one week I'm doing that, that's just because I'm just trying to find what will be the norm on my channel. So I really appreciate you guys being patient with me, and hopefully I can continue to bring valuable content in the future. Now, in my last video, I asked if anybody knew if there were jacking rails that would work with these Ford Performance tie-down kits, and basically the consensus was that there isn't. So after doing a lot of research on my own, went through forums, looked at YouTube videos, stuff like that, it seemed to me like the Steeda ultralight low profile jacking rails would work the best simply because they have a very thin mounting tab on either end. And I thought, well, I can easily put the tie down kit on top of that or underneath it to get it to work. I also found out that the rear holes don't use the same holes as the rear tie downs. So all we have to worry about is the front tie down. Now, my idea was to mount the jacking rails first and then put the tie down on top of the front tab and then use bolts to bolt it in. Now, I have three different kinds of bolts here that you can see. This is the factory one that I pulled out originally to put the tie down loops in. This is the one that came with the tie down loops. And this is the one that they actually give you with the jacking rail. So much, much shorter. So I looked at all three of them, and basically the one that comes with the tie down loops is the longest. And I measured the thickness of this tab, the thickness of the tie down kit, and the tie down is about a 1/4 inch thick and the tab is about an 8-inch thick. So if you basically look at this bolt and you take away another 8-inch, it's not going to make that much of a difference just because these are used for jacking the car up or tying them down. It's not crucial that they need to use every single thread. So my initial idea of mounting the jacking rails first and then putting the loop on top kind of backfired. Because if you look here, this is the driver's side jacking rail, and it's sitting how it would be mounted on the car, because there's this bracket here that's supposed to face inward. Now, if you put this on here, this corner right here hits that bracket, so that doesn't quite work. And this is how the tie down loop is supposed to be. It's supposed to kind of face down and inward. So that doesn't work. Now, the only thing that does work is if I was to use one hole on the tie down kit, which is still an option. Again, it's really just used for tying down to trailers and dynos and stuff. And that might actually work if I give it a little bit more torque than the 56 foot-pounds that it asks for. Now, the other option is to mount the tie down kit first and then put the Steeda jacking rail underneath it. Now, the only problem with this is that it's going to add a 1/4 inch thickness to the jacking rail, and that means it's going to stick down, past the pinch weld another 1/4 inch. It also means that I'm going to need to add a 1/4 inch worth of washers on the other end just to make sure that it's completely level from front to rear. So this was kind of my plan B. I'm going to try both ways. I'll show you both ways what they look like, and then at the end we'll make a final decision on what I think is going to work the best. I actually found 4 washers that fit over the bolt, and they stack up to be, one of them's bent, but basically they're going to stack up to be just as thick as the tie down. These, I remember these actually. This washer is bent, and it's because I use these to lift up the front of my seat in my E36 track car. I put like 10 washers on each bolt or each nut in the front to lift up these, and these were just extras that I had. So I've got a total of 8 for the 2 bolts in the back, so let's try this out. I hope that this was the last time that I had to jack up this car on the pinch welds on this side. And I did put a wheel chock underneath the front to lift it up quite a bit so I can get underneath there easily and show you guys both ways that we're going to try to mount this. Hopefully when I go to put this thing down, I can use the new jacking rail. So let's get started. Okay, so there's the jacking rail with the tie down bolts in. I just have them finger tight, so I'm going to do the rear and then we'll tighten everything up and see how it looks. Okay, here is the side profile with the tie down underneath the jacking rail. On the front, there's also some seam sealer as well, so it sticks down extra far. Now on the rear here, I put the 4 washers under each bolt, so it kind of evens out the front. Now the front does stick down a little bit more than the rear. I think that overall it doesn't stick down too far. I did find this problem when I went to go jack it up in this configuration. The jacking rail like bowed, and I didn't even think about it, but the tabs on the end are very thin, and technically the jack and rail is sitting about a 1/4 inch off of the body. So all of the weight from the car made the jacking rail bow. And that's just not going to work in general. So we're going to have to go with the jacking rail being flat to the body with the tie down kit on top. Here is the tie down with the jacking rail down first. This is using 1 bolt. I have it loose, so I can move it however I want, but I imagine what I would do is put it all the way forward like this and then torque that bolt down a little bit more than what is asked for that bolt. And that way it will be nice and tight. You can still hook to it. The jacking rail is flat. Maybe over time, with the car moving around on the trailer, this thing might move a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough to like completely loosen the strap or anything like that. So I like the way this looks, and I think I'm going to go with this. I like the fact that the jacking rail is flush with the body, and this is kind of just like added on top. So I'm going to use the tie down bolt for this hole, but for this hole I'm just going to use the normal short bolt that came with the jacking rails because there's nothing underneath here. And I'm going to use the same bolts for the rear as well. This is the profile of the jacking rail with the jacking rail completely bolted to the floor and the washers taken out of the rear. As you can see, this is mainly what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to be pretty much flush with the pinch weld. Now the rear looks a little bit more flush than the front, and that is because of that seam sealer that I did not scrape off. Now for me, the front sticking out a little bit more than the rear doesn't bother me too much. This is a jacking rail. It's going to get scraped. It's going to get scratched. Not supposed to look pretty. I am totally okay with that. So now it looks like it bows a little bit, but it's definitely not as bad as it was. So it's not actually touching the pinch weld. And so I'm pretty happy with that. And that about wraps it up. Now, in conclusion, you have to use the Steeda ultralight low profile jacking rails, and you have to put them on first, and then you can put the front tie down loops on second. Now you can only use the rear hole of the tie down loop, and I would suggest that you use the bolt that comes with the tie down loops for that hole, because you're going to have enough thread to go through the tie down loop and the jacking rail tab into the hole. But the other 3 bolts on the jacking rail, you can definitely use the bolts that come with the jacking rail since they're bolting directly to the body and there's no problems there. But yes, you definitely do not want to mount the tie down kit first and then put some washers on the other side, because it actually lifts the jacking rail about a 1/4 inch off of the body. And when you go to jack it up, since the mounting tabs are so thin, it causes the whole thing to flex a lot. And to me, I don't know, it's not safe, doesn't look good, whatever. So I ended up taking the washers out, putting the tie down kit on top of the bracket, using the 1 bolt, and mounting the jacking rail directly to the body. And I see much, much less flex when I am jacking the car up. So yeah, that's what I would do. I don't think it would work very well with one of the regular jacking rails that don't have the thin mounting tabs, just because you're going to have to put the tie down on top of that, and you're going to have to find a bolt that's long enough to go through the 1/4 inch tie down and the thickness of the jacking rail, which is like, I don't know, 2 inches or whatever, to go, and then you have to have enough thread to go into the hole. So I would suggest, if you're going to use the Ford Performance tie down loops with a jacking rail, I would do the Steeda ultralight low profile jacking rail, because it has those thin mounting tabs, and when you mount the tie down loop on top of those mounting tabs, it's only an extra 1/8 inch off of the body, and you still can't see them from the side of the car. So it works out really well. Having the one bolt at first kind of worried me a little bit, because like when you're hooking a strap to it and the car's moving around the trailer, it's moving around on the dyno, eventually that bolt is going to come loose and the bracket might move a little bit, which might loosen the strap. But I'm pretty confident that the bolt won't just come loose unless there's a lot of moving. If you have any questions or comments, definitely post them in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. So again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Stick around because I got a couple really exciting videos coming up featuring this car, and we'll see you guys on the next video.